guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to review for you the Too Faced White Chocolate Chip Palette. So if you guys are interested in hearing my thoughts about this palette and seeing swatches, then just keep on watching. So the Too Faced White Chocolate Chip Palette was released on Cyber Monday and the night before Cyber Monday for VIB Rouge members at Sephora, and that's when I was able to pick up this palette. And it's going to be re-released on Sephora.com, I think on December 14th, I think later this month it's going to be re-released, but it's also going to be limited edition, and it is a $26 palette. And I already reviewed for you guys the chocolate chip palette. They are the same size, but I'll leave my review to this palette down below if you guys want to check it out. And I'm going to do a couple comparisons, but I want to get into the white chocolate chip palette a little bit more. So like I said, they are the same size, but the shadows are very, very different. So this is a very light palette, and I knew that going into it. I knew that getting it, that it was a light, cool tone palette. So they are very light, neutral shades. You get 4 matte, 7 shimmer shades. Some of the shimmer shades are pretty much matte. They just have some glitter to them, like this black shade and also this brown taupey shade. But some of the other shimmers are like very metallic and very glittery, like this silver shade that I have on my lid, and also a few other of these colorful, more shimmery shades. So this is a very, very light, neutral palette, and there's not any like real depth to it other than this black shade. Everything else is very light, like I said. So what that means is that this palette is going to be more suited for somebody who has a lighter complexion. If you are my skin tone or any deeper, you're probably not going to find a lot of shades in this palette that are going to work for you. I did have some trouble finding like a good crease or transition shade because these shades are just very, very light, that they kind of just show up like my skin tone. They don't add any depth or any like contour to my eyelids. So this is more so a palette for like fair skin tones. So I had some trouble with that to begin with, but I kind of knew that like picking this palette up and just seeing the colors off the bat that this is going to be a very light palette. And I did want to let you guys know that I've applied this palette on my eyes several times. I'm wearing it today, and I used it on my eyes before I ever swatched it, and I had a better experience applying this on my eyes than swatching it. You guys are going to be surprised when you see the swatches, if you can even see them, because they are so light. But I had a better time using this on my eyes. But I'm going to go ahead and swatch all the colors so you guys can just see how the color payoff is from swatching it. Alright, so starting with the top row, we have this first color, which is Glaze, which is just a white matte shade. And then next we have Ambrosia, which is a matte kind of peachy taupe shade. The next is Exotica, which is this golden bronzy shimmer shade. Then in the next row we have Pearl Candy, which is this frosty shimmery white shade. And then we have Raspberry Rose, which is this pink shimmer shade. And next is my favorite, it's Indulge. It's what's all over my lid today. Then next we have this purpley taupe gray shade, and it's called Guilt Free. Then moving on to the last row, we have Cake Batter, and that's this kind of orangey matte shade. Next to that is Cookie Dough, and this is a brown shade. It's more so matte, it has a little bit of shimmer to it. And then next to that is Sugared Raisin. It's this shimmery purple shade. And then lastly we have Black Sugar, which is this black shade with some shimmer to it. Alright, so those are all the swatches in the palette, and I think we can all agree that they are not very impressive at all. They're all very light shades, so they do swatch pretty true to pan. I don't think that it's so much a problem of the pigmentation. I think it's just more a problem of the color selection in this palette, that there's not too much to work with. I do really love the shimmer shades. Like, some of the shimmer shades are really good, like this shade that I have on my lid and this shade as well. And I actually really do like the black shade. So when I started using this palette, I did like it off the bat because I was able to get looks that I really like with it. Like my eye look today, I'm using one of the shades from the matte chocolate chip palette, but basically the rest of it is from this palette. So I do like some of the colors in here. So I do really love the two shimmer shades. These two shimmer shades, the silver and this gold shade, I really love these on my lid. Every time I've applied them, they look really nice. But I'm realizing the more especially that I use this silver shade, like I've only put this on my lid 2 to 3 times, and I feel like if I use it 1 or 2 more times, I'm going to hit pan. So if I were to use this palette every day for a week, I'm basically going to run out of my favorite shades, and then I'm going to be left with just kind of average crease colors that are very light and like too light for my skin tone. So I'm probably going to return this palette if they let me return it. I've only used it like 4 times, but I'm going to run out of it so quickly that I feel like at the end of the day it's not going to be worth it if I can only use this palette for a few weeks. So I don't necessarily think that this palette is awful. I know there's a lot of negative reviews on it. I don't think it's awful, but it's definitely not worth the money. I don't think that it's like so much a pigmentation problem. I just think that the color variety is just not there. You guys can tell, like, if you can even see the swatches, because they're so minimal, but that's the colors that you're getting in this palette, just very neutral, really light shades. So some of them are actually kind of pigmented, but you have to realize that it's just like a bunch of shades of off-white, so it's not a very exciting palette. There's not going to be too many looks you could create with it because you don't have those deeper colors to add in to add any like more drama to your look. So overall, I don't think the formula of these shadows are terrible. A lot of them are pretty consistent. Some of them are more patchy because they're more glittery, but overall they're kind of like average shadows. And then the shimmer shades that I mentioned, I really like. I think that they're really good shimmer shadows. But the rest of them are just kind of like average shadows. And then when you top that with basically a color selection of this, then you're not really getting the most exciting palette, and it's definitely not worth the $26. So for $26, it's 0.25 ounces, and each of these little pans is approximately $2.36. So I don't think it's worth it for this palette. I would say that it's worth it for the chocolate chip palette. You guys know that I like it. I think this is overpriced as well, but I will use it a lot more. I'm just going to compare like a few of the transition shades. So like this color is more of a deep chocolate shade, and then we have this like burgundy color. So you're just getting a lot more depth with the colors in this palette versus these light shades. You're just not getting a lot of interesting shades. You're not going to be able to create like any interesting looks with the white chocolate palette. So as you guys can probably tell, I don't think that this palette is worth the hype. I do like the shimmer shades, but it's not going to justify the $26 price tag, especially if I just use them a few more times and I'll start hitting pan. That idea is so weird to me because I have eyeshadows that I use all the time and it takes like months to hit pan. I think the chocolate chip palette is more worth it because this is just like a good palette to bring with any other palette. Like when I'm going to travel, I'll bring this palette in addition to like my other palette, whatever palette I choose to have, because this palette will have like any transition shade that I need that might be missing from another palette. So that's kind of how I justified the price of this palette. And I think that it's more pigmented, more consistent formula, and you get a better range of shades in this palette compared to the white chocolate chip palette. Alright guys, so that's everything for today's video. Please let me know your thoughts on either of these palettes in the comments down below. And in my description bar, I'll have my link to my review and swatch video on the chocolate chip palette, all my social media links, my holiday giveaway, which is open for another 10 days or so. So make sure you're checking out my description bar for all of the important details about my channel. And if you guys like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I'll talk to you guys soon in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.
Thank you.